Oh, you think you're smart? Big brain? High IQ? Well, good for you. Guess what? EQ. EQ. I know it stands for emotional quotient, just... You join me inside the 22 Mercedes-Benz EQS 450 Plus. This is the automaker's first from-the-ground-up dedicated electric vehicle offering, and it's coming out guns blazing to fight a two-front battle. Because on the one end, you've got traditional luxury vehicles like the Mercedes-Benz S-Class, but on the other hand, you have dedicated electric vehicle offerings like the Tesla Model S and Lucid Air. So in this in-depth review of its exterior, interior, and driving dynamics, we're going to see if Mercedes-Benz has been able to channel its extensive automotive history into a successful all-electric vehicle. That's today on Miles Per Hour. And there it is, the Mercedes-Benz EQS 450 Plus, or should I say, the car of the future, right? Because if I know anything of sci-fi movies, it's that the cars of the future look a lot like this. Like jelly beans rolling around town, or floating, some float. This one doesn't have hovercraft technology, it's got wheels. But it is an interesting shape, is it not? Doesn't quite have the visual panache, the allure of full-size luxury sedans like the S-Class or 7 Series or Audi A8. Now, of course, there's a reason for that. This is, according to Mercedes-Benz, the most aero-efficient mass production car you can buy. The coefficient of drag of 0.020 just narrowly undercuts the Tesla Model S. So yeah, that's why it looks like this. It is painted in graphite gray metallic, no-cost paint job, so the sparkle on the paint surface. And while the color doesn't exactly gussy up the exterior design in any way, it does integrate well with this grille or brow studded with tri-stars on the nose that otherwise, I saw the EQS in white as an example, that makes that stand out and look to me like the folks who have the sunglasses that are a continuous band across their face. My editor JD actually has a pair. This on the graphite doesn't stand out quite as much. This EQS 450 Plus has the optional digital lights. They're LED projector headlights. They're adaptive, so they turn as you turn the wheel, automatic high beams, and they have the ability to project images, warnings onto the road surface in countries where that regulation is approved. Not here in the US currently, but they have it in Germany. There's a thin LED daytime running light that connects with this one in the middle and the other headlight off to the right to make a full bar to match the full LED bar on the trunk. Some fake vents are down here, real center air dam, and then another fake vent off to the right. Moving to the side. This EQS 450 Plus has the smallest of the 3-wheel options. You've got 20s here, 21s or 22-inch wheels. This wheel design, like the paint job, doesn't really help the exterior. It does have these blocked off gloss black panels that help with aerodynamics. They're wrapped in Goodyear Eagle 255 section tires, front and rear. Interesting to note, you cannot open the hood on the EQS. They won't let you. They want to take you to take it to a Mercedes-Benz service department. However, they will let you open this cutout right here when you unlock the car, which I haven't done, which will also pop out the door handles. Yay! And deploy the door mirrors. But here we go. Wiper fluid. You are allowed to add wiper fluid. That is your responsibility. That is what you're tasked with in the EQS. Stepping back. You might be surprised to know, because of those short overhangs, it doesn't look like it should be almost the same length as an S-Class. It's only 3 inches shorter than an S-Class. It is 1 inch narrower, 1 inch taller, and it has almost the same wheelbase length. Funky, because the 4-door fastback style that's executed here looks very different from an S-Class. that may look more elongated with that longer hood. Getting to the back, this is my favorite look at the EQS. I like this light bar. I like the designs of these LED taillights as they come across. It's got a very subtle trunk lip spoiler, EQS 450 plus badging. The trunk release and rear view camera are hidden under here. That deploys the trunk in this case. Down low, you've got these safety bulges regulations in the US, thank you very much. And nothing else gratuitous down here. There's just a touch of chrome. The back looks good. The profile is awkward to me and doesn't really make a strong statement out on the road. An S-Class, you get noticed. This car, as I've been driving around, no one notices it, and that's not what I'm looking for necessarily, but someone who spends $100,000 on a sedan might want to get a second glance. This one, the only time people would look at you is to go, what was that? Just my opinion. Not awful, just not luxury standout. Let's take a look at that interior though. On our way in, I'll note the EQS has a standard smart keyless access feature. So you can leave the key in your pocket, and when you get close enough to the doors, they will present the handles like this. If you want to lock them, you put your finger on that indent right there. We've got that for the front doors and the rear ones, and that we call maximum convenience. But the EQS goes a step further, because with the comfort access option, you can just walk up to the doors and it will open them for you. You get inside, put your foot on that brake, it will close the doors for you. You can then go into the infotainment and open or close any of the doors, including the trunk, from within the, I mean, that's so cool. I know you can do that on Teslas, but it's still awesome. I wish this car had that. I want to show it. Opening up and looking inside. The EQS here has a black on space gray color combo. And worthy of note is that none of these seating surfaces or door panels have real leather on them. They're leatherette. There was a big push for sustainable, user-friendly, recyclable materials in this EQS. We're seeing that a lot on electric vehicles. I will say that this is some very convincing leatherette. Feels really good. As standard, the EQS gets heated and ventilated front seats. This one has an optional executive trim that makes them massaging as well. And you get a 4-zone climate control with that package. You also, as standard, get these suede puffy pillows for the headrests on the front and rear seats. The only thing about the seats I don't like is that they don't look super luxurious or inviting. They're just sort of this flared out seashell look. Just doesn't scream ultimate luxury. But these materials do feel very good. The contrast stitching looks excellent. There's this bronze tinge to this trim that's here and up on the dashboard by the air vents in the EQS. Your handle feels solid. Your seat controls have this knurled finish to them, and they don't move, but you just adjust them by pressing on the zones for the headrest, the backrest, the cushion, and the thigh support. Here are your seat heating and ventilation buttons, along with a control to then operate the passenger seat. As I've said before in other Mercedes-Benz vehicles, to play tricks on that passenger. You've got three sets of memory controls. A Burmester 15-speaker 710 watt sound system is standard in the EQS. So you've got beautiful speaker covers here, there, and in the back. We're seeing some of the ambient lighting here on the EQS, and though it isn't quite as vibrant as what I saw in the S-Class, there is an option for active ambient lighting, and that's really cool. I'll show you how that works when I get inside more. Down here, nicer feeling injection molding. You can pull on this tab here, and it will raise up the hatchback. I think I called it a trunk earlier. This is very much a hatchback. It's one of the big appeals to the EQS because though the S-Class is a really good-sized trunk, with the hatch of the EQS, it's so much easier to load in cargo to this vehicle. I'll list the specs for with the seats up and the seats down for the EQS. Under the floor is a deep cubby where you might normally store some charging cables. Here I've managed to fit my whole backpack. There's another really deep cubby off to the left-hand side with a netted border. 2 hooks for grocery bag organization and a couple tie-down points actually 4 of them. The only issue I have with the trunk is that to fold down the rear seats, which split fold 60/40, there's a power folding option. If you don't have the option though, you're gonna have to access them from the sides or the back. If you want to do it from the back, you'll probably want to unhook this cargo cover, which then slides back into itself, and then reach over, which I'm doing at 6 feet tall, stretching my whole body out, and then pushing hard to get it down. This is just not easy to do. But if you can get it done, then you've got lots of capacity back here. If you can't, well, go to the side. You've got the close and power close and lock function. Before I get to the rear seats, I'll pop open the charging port door. You only have it on one side, unlike the Audi e-tron. You got it on both sides in that vehicle, and it doesn't do anything fancy. There's no swipe like the Taycan. It's just a press open like a normal fuel door. You've got your standard charging, and then pull this out for DC fast charging capability. If you can find it, it will charge up to a rate of 200 kilowatts, and that will replenish the battery from 10 to 80% in just 35 minutes. That's if you can find it. Otherwise, your standard 220 outlet will bump you from 10 to 100% effectively overnight. It's like 11 hours and some change. It's a big battery, 108 kilowatts. In the rear, we have the standard 5-seater configuration. You can get the EQS, a 2+2 setup with a full center console. That looks much more executive travel. These seats, unfortunately, like the fronts, look a bit underwhelming for the price. You still have those poofy pillows and the contrast stitch and excellent feel to this leatherette. The door panels look and feel solid like the fronts with the contrast stitching. The ambient lighting shining through clear now as the daylight fades. This is a piece of piano gloss black. Not my favorite, but you won't be touching it too terribly often because your window switches are down here. Those feel really good, and they operate the frameless windows that you have for the front and the rear. And it's laminated glass in the front. It's an option for your lamination of the safety glass to cut down on noise getting inside the cabin. The window switches feel really good. You got more of those Burmester speaker covers in metal. Injection molding down here, nice sized door bins like the fronts, and illuminated Mercedes-Benz tread plates. Hopping inside. So we've got some air vents here in the pillars, hook for your coat, and this is my legroom at 6 feet tall behind my own driving position. You can see I can stretch out pretty darn well. The foot pockets are good size to decrease that knee angle, and the legroom, though 2 inches shy of the S-Class, is still really very generous back here. The only thing I'll say is because the batteries are in the floor, they had to raise the floorboard, so my knees, when sitting up like this, are pitched up at a higher angle than I would like, and the thigh support isn't able to compensate. It goes out far enough, but because of the floor height, it just can't do much back here. With that exclusive trim I mentioned that gets you the multi-contour seats, you have the 4-zone climate control, again without rear seat heating or ventilation, 2 USB-C ports down there, and you have a somewhat plain armrest. Just good feeling, but not much going on visually, and 2 cup holders that pop out. That's at least a neat thing to look at. You also have a glass roof here in the back, and it is bisected by this pillar here, so it's not a full panoramic experience, but you still get plenty of light that comes in back here. You've got your cabin lighting, and it's a very nice setup back here. It's just not quite as nice, in my opinion, as the S-Class. Let's go check out the front seats. Also, you don't have soft closed doors. You do have mat pockets, but no soft closed doors. So you got to really give it the business. To finalize what I was talking about in the front, here's that same open pore wood trim. Your 4 window switches, all auto one touch, and your mirror controls are here in a very seamless, minimalistic design. Hopping inside the front area. Oh boy, how could you not completely get absorbed by the Hyperscreen? That's Mercedes-Benz's word for this continuous piece of Gorilla Glass that connects 3 independent screens. You've got a 12.5-inch display here, a 17.7-inch, I think, display here, and then a similarly large to this display for the passenger side. It's pretty overwhelming. You get used to it actually remarkably quickly, and you start to think that every other car has the tiniest infotainment in the world, but it is a very neat effect. It is an option. It's like a $7,000 option on this 450 Plus. It's standard, I think, on some higher trims of the EQS. However, this display, unlike this one and this one, are not OLED. This is your typical MBUX digital driver display. Lots of reconfigurability. I won't go through absolutely everything. I will say the skins for the gauge cluster are different than your standard S-Class setup, apart from your navigation and assistance. And my favorite, I think, is the sport mode. This one looks really cool. I won't hunt through absolutely everything in here. If you want to see the full in-depth walkthrough of the car, check out my walk-around video. I'll be sure to link for you. The head-up display, that is an option on this vehicle as well with the MBUX augmented reality. So it'll give you these turn-by-turn directions with arrows. If you want to take a look at that, my S-Class POV drive or my EQS POV drive have the same technology going on. This, it's MBUX, it's really responsive, and you have wireless Apple CarPlay in this vehicle. Prompt that up. Takes a second because I'm using my phone to record, but normally that is a very fast transition. And it does take over, as you saw, most of the display, not the whole display, but as much as you would actually need and use. Otherwise, navigating this system is really very easy. Furthermore, you have the fingerprint scanning system, which will bring up your profile that you can save to the car, and all your favorite settings will be prompted the moment you get in the car and put your finger on that tab there. There are no physical buttons here. You do have a couple touch controls here to bring up your surround view camera system, which is still some of the coolest technology in a production car. In fact, you can just scan around your whole vehicle while sitting here and see live traffic around you is cool. A front and rear view angle and parking assistance for yourself. Some hotkeys here bring up a lot of the common settings that you'll be using. And you also have an EQ button that brings up information like how much range you have left and nearby charging stations and your consumption habits. So yeah, navigating this is very simple. It's quick to respond. You have this haptic feedback, so you know that when you hit the control, it's giving the feedback saying, hey, message received, you got it covered. You have seating massage with the multi-contour seats that we have in this vehicle, and you have a sound experience. I'll get more into this when we're doing our driving impressions, but I'll show you the ambient lighting options for now. So you have 64 color ambient lighting as standard, but this one has the active ambient lighting as an option. So for example, when you raise the temperature in the vehicle, it will trigger a red light along the cabin. Or if you go down in temperature, it'll show you a blue light. Furthermore, as you'll see in my night drive, this monochrome setting will give you this pulsing design to the ambient lighting that just enhances your driving experience so much more. It's really, really cool. I like that your climate control settings stay down here at all times so you know where to find them, and you can bring up a full climate menu to take over the screen along with your HEPA filtration stuff and ionization of the air and fragrance should you want it. That is an option in this vehicle. Let's hop over to the passenger side though to play around with that screen, because this car is smart. It won't even let you access the screen unless it detects someone sitting in that seat. All right, so now that my butt is in this seat, a power icon appears on the screen, allowing me to access the MBUX system, which behaves much the same way that it does for the center screen. I can send navigation instructions to that screen. I can obviously change up the media. I could engage my massaging seat function. I could set the ambient lighting colors. I could just monitor the EQ battery level or the range, or see how the energy is flowing through the vehicle. And of course, I could just sit here and watch movies while the driver is doing his or her thing. It's all really cool, including the fact that I have my own voice assistant for the passenger side, independent of the driver's voice assistant. Let's try that out. Hey, Mercedes.
How may I help you?
I'm feeling warm.
I'm reducing the temperature to 62 degrees.
Pretty cool. You also now that I'm over on the passenger side, can more easily see the underfloor storage here. You've got 2 USB-C ports there, and this strap to tie down something like, oh, I don't know, a big bottle. We'll try that out later. Here is more of that open pore wood trim. You can slide that open, and you've got 2 coupled. I'm sorry, did I mention you? Thank you. So you've got these cup holders here. Okay, we're gonna have a talk later. 2 cup holders, which you can deploy. Don't know if they'll be big enough for a big bottle. We'll find out later. And if you don't want this storage here, you can actually take this whole thing out, which is going to be more convenient for larger items. Oh gosh, I've broken it. Everything's wrong. In here, we also have wireless smartphone charging and 2 more USB-C ports, along with our key. How does that look? Looks very much like the new S-Class key, has the same weight to it with this more matte finish. I like that a lot. Your lock, unlock, and trunk release buttons are here, along with your panic button on the back in gloss black. This looks and feels high quality. That's standard S-Class stuff right there. Power close that. I showed you these buttons here, including the fact that you do have to press a start-stop button to turn on the car and turn it off. Opening up the same faux leather, but very nice feeling material that's on the door panels. There's a super deep cubby here. Lots of storage in there, along with 2 more USB-C ports. Tons of charging solutions in your EQS. Up here, we've got some ambient light glow, along with the adjustments for your power sunroof. So you could close up the shade if you want to. You can also press up to tilt the sunroof, or swipe back to open it. It's all pretty intuitive and responsive. I dig it. Forgot to mention there's a glove box down here. You press that button, it comes down. Not a lot of storage, but just enough. And with that, let's hop back to the driver's seat to wrap up the interior review. Last couple things to show you from the driver's seat. You've got our steering wheel design, which I do believe this is real leather wrapping. It feels like it. Nice and thickly padded. Your steering wheel design is just like the S-Class. You've got this gloss black here, and this is unfortunately something you will touch often, so the smudges and scratches will show. Haptic controls on the steering wheel, right and left hand sides. These work mostly well unless your hands get clammy, then you're just swiping at it forever and it's not picking up on what you want it to do. The upper left hand side controls the left gauge cluster. The upper right hand side controls the MBUX system and your media settings on the right, and all your driver assistance features, and the EQS comes with a full suite of them, are here on the lower left hand side. You've got paddles on the left and right hand side, and these don't control gear changes, obviously. They control the regen braking. So you've got 2 levels of regen, or with the right paddle, you can turn the system off completely, so you're just coasting. Your drive gear selection is down, reverse is up, and in pressing in on the side is for park. On the left hand side is this knurled stalk for your turn signals. And then you press in or crank the dial here for your windshield wipers. You've got power controls for the steering wheel, and though it is painfully slow, you can actuate it to pretty much any body type. Your sun visors are here, kind of a harder plastic, and you've got a fabric headliner in the EQS as standard. You can get this with Alcantara. Your vanity mirror is nice and large, and best of all, these sun visors slide all the way, so no sun is going to get into that side window. Mentioned the head-up display, that's there. And with all that shown to you, the last thing is our big bottle test. Will it find a spot? And you notice when I put my hand over here, it shows the light on the side. It's a great feature. Will it fit in the EQS? Well, I don't think it's going to fit in these cup holders. No, even touching them, it wants to push it out. You can, of course, take that out, but then the bottle would be blocking your wireless smartphone charging. I don't like that. We'll try the center console. Super deep. It can fit standing up. You can probably fit 2 bottles in there. And I mentioned there's that strap down there that you could probably put around the big bottle. I don't know if I could do this one-handed. Not easily. Let's just say you could do it 2-handed, and there is a lip to this, so the bottle is not going to come out. I'll call that a second spot for the big bottle. And then, of course, you've got your door pocket where it does stay. So you've got plenty of spaces in the EQS for a big bottle. That's a big pass. And with that, let's just start up the EQS A little show from the ambient lighting. And of course, I can't rev it up for you, but I will do a drive-by. You could hear the acoustic system for pedestrian safety from the EQS. And before we get out and drive it, I'll just say, if you've been enjoying this video so far, please like, comment, and share it. Subscribe to the channel and turn on that bell for notifications. Without further ado, let's go for a drive. All right, friends, as usual, we're going to start things off with a 0 to 60 test. And in preparation, I've queued up the Sport fascia to my digital gauge cluster. And I'm going to be doing a sound experience in silver waves. So that means the last thing is to go to sport mode and pin it. Oh, that sounds neat. And there it is. That's 60. Now, that didn't throw me back too hard in the seat, but because the power is delivered instantly, we got there hastily. Now, Mercedes says this version of the EQS, the 450 Plus, will get to 60 in about 5.7 seconds, and that felt about right. It's not as quick as the 560 version of the EQS that gets to 60 in the low to mid 4-second range, and it certainly won't be as quick as the upcoming AMG version that's going to have available 750 plus horsepower. But this is plenty quick for all your daily driving needs. To talk about the powertrain, so I mentioned the 108 kilowatt per hour battery pack. That's going to be the same for the 450 as it is for the 560, but the 450 has a single electric motor in the rear, making it rear driven, and the combined output is 329 horsepower and 416 pound-feet of torque. As I said, it being delivered right when you put your foot on the throttle means that it feels quicker than those numbers would suggest. And I like the Silver Wave soundtrack, especially because when you let off the throttle, if you have braking regen, or if you're just doing the brakes yourself, you get that cool, like powering down sound. And I have it in the increased braking regeneration, increased recuperation, they call it. And though it isn't quite a one-pedal driving experience, when you do lift your foot off the throttle, it slows you down very well. We're going extraordinarily slow because we're following a Prius. Now, one thing to note about the braking regen is the Mercedes system actually assists by hybridizing the regen and the friction braking in a way that it presses a bit on the brake pedal for you. And I'll tell you, that's the weirdest thing when you first try it out. How about the turning radius? Gosh, that is tight. Now, the reason it is so tight is because as standard, the EQS has 4.5 degrees of rear wheel steering input in the opposite direction when you're doing low speed stuff like we just did, which helps the turning radius be tighter. But you can pay for a software upgrade to give you 10 degrees of rear wheel steer, and we have that option on this vehicle, and so it turns as tight as a compact car. A little more on that braking regen. I mentioned it's an odd feeling at first. It's like someone stole your brake pedal. You go to the brake pedal and someone has already pressed it for you. You do get used to it, but I can't say I enjoy the experience. I feel like the standard braking regen systems that you get in some other EVs are a little easier to adjust to if you're coming out of an ICE car than this, when no ICE car is going to press the brake pedal for you, unless it's doing an auto emergency braking function. Beyond the straight line performance, when you talk about the luxury credentials of the EQS, I feel like you have to go in and turn off the sound experience so you're getting the true silent driving that an all-electric vehicle can promise. And let me tell you, it's not just the fact that there's no motor, or engine rather, making noise. It's the fact that Mercedes-Benz has insulated this cabin so well. You've got that laminate on the glass, and you have all the additional sound deadening materials. This is a true luxury experience. It's just as quiet, I would say more so quiet, than an S-Class, which for me is an incredible benchmark for a $100,000 sedan. This is so smooth. Adding to that are the fact that though I said the seats don't look that amazing, they are certainly comfortable. And beyond that, we have Mercedes-Benz's Airmatic suspension system. So you got adaptive dampers with an air suspension on top of that absolutely filters everything of the harshness of a road surface to make your ride as pillowy as you might expect at this price point. I've kept it in sport mode, and I'm going to turn the sound experience back on, but we're changing up. We're going to vivid flux so that I can do some pulls, and see how that feels. Well, that sounds like a spacecraft, doesn't it? I love this noise. Oh my gosh. If that doesn't add to the experience of fun, I don't know what does. Vivid Flux, you're the winner. You are absolutely the winner. I can't stop doing this. That is too good. That noise is too good. All right, but I'm going to turn down the braking regen a little bit. I can go to normal. There's just a very light easing as you take your foot off the throttle, or you can turn it off completely and you just coast. This one is going to be ideal for a highway driving experience that we'll have in just a second. And I've been in sport mode this whole time, so I might as well try. Let's go to comfort and let's really just relax in the EQS. And as we do that, let's talk about how Mercedes-Benz has positioned the EQS in the automotive market, because the brand is in a transition. They say, along with everyone else in the automotive world, they say that by 2030, half of their lineup will be all electric. And by 2039, the whole lineup, the whole brand is going electric. And so this is a stepping stone towards that. And it's the reason why they wanted to go for their upper end. They wanted to show their best stuff at an S-Class level. And so though this is, yes, competing with vehicles like the Tesla Model S and the Lucid Air, dedicated electric vehicles, it's also targeting traditional luxury buyers as sort of a handhold to this new generation of vehicle. And you got to ask yourself, how have they done? But before we dive too deep into that competitive discussion, we need to see how the electric vehicle driving dynamics play into the EQS. So braking regen is back up, back in sport mode. The regenerative braking feel is odd, but the handling is sensational. So much stability, having the batteries, all this car's main weight down low, having that rear wheel steering system now turn in the same direction as the front wheels, effectively lengthening this car's already long wheelbase to give us that stability. And then the vivid flux to appreciate coming out of the corner. Yes, the EV driving dynamics are awesome, and they match really nicely with how this vehicle coasts down the road. And so let's go back to comfort, turn regen braking off completely. And since we're on the highway, let's do a demo of the driving assistance features and the onboard navigation system. So I want to show you the assistance visuals as I cue these up. There we go. All right. So now we've got adaptive cruise control going. You can see, I don't know, maybe you can, on the head-up display, there's sort of an underline of the car in front of me showing that the vehicle is tracking, keeping that same following distance. I can take my hands off the wheel, I think. No, now I can take my hands off the wheel. And it will follow the curve of the road. I can even change lanes automatically. As long as the car sees that there is a gap there, a safe gap, it'll change lanes for me. And why not? Let's get the navigation system going while showing you how well it holds the curve of the road. And so when I get that queued up, it is going to give me visuals of arrows pointing when there is a prompt, a change of the highway, and it'll actually even keep the navigation and the safety features going between highway changes. Now that's all cool stuff. It's not exactly moving the needle on driving assistance technology, because there are things like Tesla's autopilot system and Cadillac Super Cruise system, where you can have your hands completely off the wheel without having to check it at all on dedicated highways. This we don't yet have from Mercedes-Benz, but it's still great to have this suite of technologies as standard on the EQS. Okay, we satisfied here? With that shown, let's now talk about the competition. So I gave you the framing where the EQS kind of lines up in this industry, and I mentioned the competitors from the standard EV segment, and that would be the Tesla Model S. And if we're looking price to price comparison, the EQS 450 Plus starts at $103,000. The Tesla Model S comparison there would be the long range, that's around $91,000, so a little cheaper than this. The horsepower for that is much higher at 670. The range is 405 miles, which on paper sounds like a lot more than the 350 that the EPA rates this vehicle. However, in my real-world testing, every time I charge up the EQS, it gives me an estimate just below 400 miles, and that estimate doesn't fade. It stays that long as I use up the battery pack. Of course, if you're spending a lot of time on the highway, yes, it's going to cut down a little quicker than if you're just doing city driving. But a real-world range of closer to 400 miles is very impressive. The Tesla Model S, the long range, is a lot quicker to 60 at 3.1 seconds. The Lucid Air Touring would be another one that price-wise kind of matches up with this at $95,500, a little less expensive. The horsepower for that one is a lot more at 620 horsepower. 0 to 60 is 3.2 seconds, and the range for that one is 406 miles. Again, on paper seems like a lot more than this, but in real world, this is very close. How would I compare the EQS to those vehicles? Well, I'll say one thing. I think both the Lucid Air and the Tesla Model S, with a little more traditional styling, are better to look at than the EQS. However, their interiors I don't think are any better. I would say the Model S's interior is a big step down from the poshness that you get in this vehicle, plus the Hyperscreen technology. Lucid Air, haven't spent a lot of time in that cabin yet, so I can't really make a claim there. But the EQS is also fighting the traditional luxury segment with vehicles like the S-Class that just look that much more exquisite. The S-Class S500 is really the more direct competitor to this as the entry-level EQS. The S500 is about $110,000, so more expensive than this. It makes 429 horsepower, which on paper sounds like more, but real-world 0 to 60 is about the same at around 5.7 seconds. The top speed for all the vehicles I've mentioned thus far are 155 miles per hour, beating the 130 miles per hour of the EQS. And the fuel economy for the S500 is 24 combined. Not bad, but you still got to use some gas. How I think the S-Class is still a little better than the EQS at this point is, as I said, the way it looks, the royalty you feel when you drive up in that, and the interior just aesthetically looks a little better apart from the Hyperscreen. The Hyperscreen, I think, is incredible. This needs to be a standard thing on the EQS. The fact that you have to pay extra for it is sort of a bummer. I think this is a wonderful transition. I think it's a beautiful way for someone who wants to take the step into electric vehicles to have that handhold. Just think they need to do a little bit better on the exterior styling. Hope you guys have enjoyed this in-depth review. If you liked the video, so please like, comment, and share it. Subscribe and hit that bell to get notified. Until next time, Vivid Flux.